Councilmember Colomer?
Here.
Councilmember Cernovich?
Here.
Councilmember Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Comnic?
Here.
Mayor Moore?
Here. I'd like to ask everybody in attendance to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence in honor of our troops. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda, are routine in nature, and we pass with one vote of the council. Should any member of the council or the audience wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda for individual consideration, please say so now, and it will be removed and considered following the approval of many consent items. Consent items include payroll for the pay period ending May 16th in the amount of $288,242.90, staff reports, and BOC report. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda items?
So moved. Second.
Please call roll.
Councilmember Cernovich?
Aye.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Councilmember Comnic?
Aye.
Councilmember Colomer?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye. Next, we have approval of the bills for May 26th in the amount of $252,216.99. Do I have a motion to approve payment of the bills?
So moved. Second.
And any discussion?
I did want to bring light to one area here. We did have a $780 sidewalk reimbursement, and I think that is something that's highlighted in this bill here that not a lot of people take credit for. We do put money out there to get your sidewalks. We talk about this as we're going through budget. So for all the sidewalks in Kewanee, just know that we do have a reimbursement program, and somebody's taking advantage of that, and I'd love to see that in the bills, that we are paying somebody for a sidewalk reimbursement. So.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I had that to you. Pretty easy program. Just get a hold of our department before you start doing the work. There is a process to be inspected before and after.
I think there's actually an application online, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
You go to the city website, and there's an application where you can apply.
And we are paying more than we have, so we just updated the amount, so.
Yep, and I will put that on our Facebook page too.
Cool.
Anything else?
No, I just want to bring highlight to that on mine.
I have a couple questions. So on page 17, internal revenue, 2025 Q3, just internal revenue, 12,606.
That is from Q3 2025. If there is any kind of difference, what we claim that we paid to them versus what we should have, they charge us a fee for that. So that was the fee for any kind of like misreporting.
Is this the amount plus interest, or is this just the fee?
Correct. No, it's the amount plus interest. And they charge the interest, even though that was from Q3 and they just sent it to us, they charge interest all the way until we pay it. Yes.
So, okay, so what is driving the error? And I know we're working through a lot of processes, so
Yeah. It's usually just the calculations that Locus has in payroll. If it's even off by a couple cents, then we get charged for the difference of that. So they have a standard fee. If there's any misreporting, it's this much money, then it tax on interest. It's not, you were off by $1, so you owe $1 plus interest. It's, this is how much it costs if you report the wrong amount, and then they tack interest.
So does Locus
onto
know that this problem is in our system? Because it sounds like we're putting things in, but they're calculating incorrectly.
It doesn't happen every time. It just...
But I mean, even one time is one time too many. Because I mean, we got $12,000 here in fees and...
Right, it's typically a rounding error most of the time that happens with that. Locus usually goes out to 4 decimal places. I don't know how far the revenue service goes out. But it's the same kind of with IMRF. It's usually off a couple dollars just from rounding errors with both.
I guess I would be interested in knowing a little bit more to determine if this is a problem based on how much of this is what we owe versus what is a fee or interest.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like what the breakdown of that would be.
Yeah.
That would help us determine whether or not you really need to tackle it. Because if it's $12,600 of what we would have owed anyway, and $6 is fees and interest.
Interest,
okay.
right. Yeah, I can get that for you.
Yeah, okay. Kankakee Nursery, $2,150 and $400. Hey, Chris, good evening.
Good evening. This is for trees. We ordered a bunch of trees, and some of them will be planted right here around City Hall.
Great, great. Are all of them going to be right here? Just so we.
A good chunk of them will, I would say. I think it's like 10 or so
Right.
should be around here.
And this is part of our grant that we had.
Yeah, the Trees Forever
And
program.
our plan that's been developed.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. Is there any way we can get them locally, or do we have to go through Kankakee?
That's one of the approved suppliers through the grant program. I think Kathleen did the sourcing on that one.
So due to the grant, we have to go to their approved vendors, we can't go to.
Yeah, we can look more into if there's anything more local than that.
Okay.
But yeah, I was under the assumption that this was our best supplier for this one.
Yeah, okay.
Next question is for the Kewanee Chamber of Commerce, the Resolution 5310 firework display. I don't recall 5310. Did we approve that?
So that's a really old one. We had discussed that a little bit during the budget discussion. It's not we're not technically, a long time ago, for some reason, it was coded as we're giving $3,000 to the chamber for fireworks, but it's part of our annual dues that we pay to the chamber, and they dedicate the $3,000 from their end to fireworks. So 5310 is like from 2021, maybe a little bit older, of our agreement with the chamber.
So can we look at discussing canceling 5310 and taking a new look at this?
Yes,
Or, just
the
not
whole
having
agreement.
other councils direct our spending?
Yes.
Lackey monuments, $700. We replace a sign or something?
Usually when you see lackey monuments, that's something in the cemetery, so this time around there was a damaged headstone. I think that's $700 for that.
To repair?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Councilmember Comnic?
Aye.
Councilmember Colomer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cernovich?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye. We'll move on to public comments. If there's anyone from the audience that wishes to address the council regarding anything that is not on the agenda, please step up to the microphone and state your name. And please keep in mind that there is going to be a 3-minute time limit per speaker. Okay? So we will move on. We have a scholarship presentation, the 2026 Orgullo Hispanic Scholarships. These are scholarships that were actually given out by the school districts, if I'm correct, and they omitted in announcing them publicly, so we invited them here so that they could get the public recognition that they deserved.
We have Itzel Rivas from Kewanee High School, and we have Jezebel Rivera from Weathersfield High School.
Which one's which?
This is just Jezebel, and this is Itzel.
So these scholarships were from the Kewanee Hispanic Heritage Commission, committee, which is part of the Commission on Human Relations, and they get a lot of donations for their event, and they wanted to be able to give back to the community. So they formed their own scholarship. They talked with both of the school districts about what all that entails, and then they had students write essays And then they chose the winners based off of their essays, and each of these ladies received a $1,000 scholarship from the committee and the commission.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you, ladies, for coming. We appreciate it. Congratulations.
With it being the first scholarship that the commission is offering, we actually wanted to take a picture with all of you guys and the ladies as well, if that's okay.
That's absolutely.
I know that there's more pictures to come, but what's another one?
No problem. We'll take pictures.
Chris, can you take like half? There we go. Mayor, can you scoot over a little bit? A little bit. Perfect. And then
Oh, no, no,
Yep, send it to you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
This goes to show there is power of the pen. We have the swearing in of a new fire chief, but before we do that, we have somebody that would like to come forward and have a few remarks about our outgoing fire chief.
So if we could have Chief Wilgott and incoming Chief Forney to the front, please.
Front and center, gentlemen.
Okay. My name is Courtney, and I am Chief Welgott's middle and favorite child. I've been thinking about this, and honestly, I feel like there aren't enough words to convey what I want to say, but I'm going to try. Friday will mark the end of a chapter I will always cherish in my heart. After 27 years of dedicated service for the Kewanee Fire Department, you've truly earned your well-deserved relaxation. I've had the pleasure of getting to work with my dad the last 4.5 years here at the city. Working with him every day has only allowed the bond we have to grow more. I'm so thankful and honored that I got to see you do the job you love, not only growing up, but as a coworker too. I'm so proud of you and how hard you have worked to get this far. Now, most of you know my dad the way we all do here, as a friend, a leader, and someone you could always count on. He's given 27 years of dedicated service to this department and this community, with the last 5 years as chief. And he did it the way he does everything, with his all. This week, his dedication is finally being celebrated. Growing up, we knew Dad might get called away at any moment, and we were always proud of him for it. But I think what I'm most proud of is that through all of it, he never stopped showing up for us too. Now he gets to do a little more of that. More fishing trips and golfing with his dad, more family time, and a whole lot more time chasing around his grandkids. Dad, this town is better because of you, and you have more than earned this retirement. I think I speak for the whole family when I say we are so glad to finally have a little more of you to ourselves. We love you. Congratulations.
And now we'll have the swearing in of our new fire chief, Jacob Kewanee.
I don't want to have to follow that up, but. Okay, so, do you want to read words or repeat?
Don't matter, I can read it.
Okay, just raise your right hand and read what you have.
I, Jacob Kewanee, having been promoted to the office of Fire Chief in and for the city of Kewanee in the county of Henry, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the position of Fire Chief of the city of Kewanee according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Congratulations, Chief. Okay, you two together first? Yeah. Good? Okay. Come on down. Okay, we would, Kewanee family, like to come up for pictures?
Please allow me, I apologize.
I really get promoted to chief. Sorry, Frank.
Mama.
Guys, Mr. Master, real quick. Yes, sir. Sorry, someone's
Yes, I will. Thank you. Good? Okay. We can have Chief Wilcox family come up for pictures, please. Yes.
And Captain Joseph Rediger.
You can pull up the images now.
And the other two as well. Lieutenant Andrew Welgott and Engineer Sean Frank. Is he the second favorite?
Okay, I'm actually going to have all three of you face that way because you've all got family here and you have your paper, so raise your right hand. Another right, no, just kidding. Okay, go ahead.
I, Andrew Welgott, have been promoted to the office of Fire Captain in and for the city of Kewanee in the county of Henry, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the position of Fire Captain of the city of Kewanee according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Where you get stuck?
Act like you like it.
That was taller than that.
Council?
I'm sure, I know much better. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do Redder's family.
I'll take it, thank you.
Trip over myself.
That's usually me.
That sure cleared up quick.
I know, sometimes I feel like we should keep those stuff in the end, so we just keep it.
Have an audience that way. Okay, we'll move on to new business. We'll begin with item A, bill number 26-42, ordinance granting a request for a variance to the maximum allowed height of a privacy fence to Freedom House at 716 Elliott Street. This bill and item B are both requests for variances. They're both self-explanatory. What I would like to point out is there is a right way and a wrong way for variance requests. The right way is to contact the city and check to see if the proposed build meets city ordinances, and if not, file for a variance. The wrong way is to do nothing at all, continue with your plans, and then suffer the consequences, which could include removal of your new build. So we encourage everybody, if you're planning a new build, check with the city to make sure that it meets the requirements of city ordinances. So how about a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
I was at the meeting actually because it's right behind my house, and my concern was that it was going to go around the alley, and it's just going to cover a concrete pad. I know, Michael, you're here from it. So just to give it a little privacy, not much.
It's enclosing a playground as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I think I only add that to say, like, there's a purpose behind this additional foot, which is protection.
Correct.
And some privacy, confidentiality of who this facility is really intended to serve.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Anything else? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Comnic.
Aye.
Councilmember Colomer.
Aye.
Councilmember Cernovich.
Aye.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Mayor Moore.
Aye. And bill number 26-43, ordinance granting a request for a variance to the maximum allowed lot coverage to Martin Orduno at 713 Pine Street. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
And any discussion?
So I'm a little concerned with the over 50% lot coverage here. Wondering, I mean, lot coverage, the reason we have this as an ordinance is one for density in these neighborhoods, also for probably water evacuation concerns in these neighborhoods to some degree. I mean, what's your perspective on lot density as it pertains to residential management and planning?
Yeah, so on some of these parcels, I believe I mentioned in some of the minutes there in the memo, the standard for lot size was created after this parcel was subdivided to what it is. And in cases like this, it kind of leaves a resident challenged for some things. I understand where you're coming from. I don't believe it'll be an issue. He can't cause a water runoff issue or a nuisance to a neighbor. So if by chance this additional roof space would cause any kind of a nuisance to a neighbor, it would be on Martin to correct the issue with either downspout or whatever would be needed.
Which brings me to my next question. We're talking about a carport here. Generally, carports don't have gutter systems on them like garages would.
Not typically, but I've seen them.
Right, so like, what is our code here? If we're talking about a carport, we're not just simply talking about lot coverage. What is our code for addition of a carport? What kind of standards should we expect to see in this project?
Guess I'm not too sure what exactly you're asking.
Well, because the variance is just simply to approve lot coverage.
Correct.
But now we're also talking about, like, as a variance is approached, in my mind, when you're going to when you're going to move away from the approved standard, which has taken all variables into consideration, and now we're going to approve a variance away from one, we're not just building a house here. We're not building it to code. We're doing something else. Like, I just wonder, I didn't see any consideration to looking into, is the water runoff or is the density issue? Like, at what point will we not approve a variance for lot coverage when we are exceeding the 35%? Now we're at plus 50.
Yeah.
The original lot that was separated into these two lots is about the same size as mine. When I was looking at comparing this, I can't imagine an entire house behind my house, you know, so it's
right.
And so I go to look at this, and when we're looking at the residential makeup of the neighborhood, we do have lawful non-conforming.
Yes.
Should we, as we updated our code, should we aggravate the lawful non-conforming nature, or should we seek to meet our codes of the neighborhood or the standard of the neighborhood, rather than move further away from that standard that our planning commission set some time ago?
Yeah, it's just a tough situation. It really is. I mean, we can't undo that subdivision of the parcel. We can't say, okay, we're not going to have this anymore, so you got to move your house. We can't do that.
Right.
So it is difficult, but, you know, the IPMC states specifically about water runoff nuisance to a neighbor. And if it comes down to it, if it's causing a water runoff issue, like I said, it'd be on Martin to either add a downspout or a tile or something to eliminate that. I had a similar case that didn't require a variance, I want to say about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, where a resident had a carport on the side of the house, and they were just fixing it, putting new material up. And it indeed did cause a water runoff nuisance to a neighbor. The carport was pretty close to the lot line. It was lawful non-conforming. And he had to put up, you know, gutters on this particular carport. If he didn't, well, then I have no choice but to send him to see Zach on a Friday morning. So it would have to be corrected. But I understand your concern. I get it. I just don't know that we, in some of these situations where someone's kind of challenged on what they can afford and what they have to live in, and they're just trying to make things a little bit better. One of my concerns was, is it going to cause any kind of a vision issue for neighboring properties or at a corner? And I don't see that being any concern.
Right, but I mean, generally, lot coverage ratio, sightlines didn't play a role in defining lot coverage ratio.
Right.
In my, just my approach. I mean, I'm not 100% sure there, but what I'm thinking about here is as we move forward, kind of where are we going? You know, what are we wanting this to be? Are we going to adhere to our standards and have a resident and have a neighborhood, because all the other residents on that neighborhood are conforming and are adhering to some sort of density standard. And now we have one, and I get it, it's a bummer and it's lawful non-conforming. Do we have a good enough reason to further deviate from the standard of the entire neighborhood for a lawful non-conforming property?
Well, you know, as you know, I don't have a vote.
Yeah.
The zoning board's passed it.
Yeah.
You know, if I had a vote, would I have voted the same way as the zoning board? I mean, I think I probably would.
Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying, though. The variance process is a tool, you know, and it is a case-by-case basis. You know, so if someone came forward and they had a parcel that was 20,000 square feet, and they were wanting to go to 50% lot coverage, you know, that might be a different issue, I guess.
Right.
I was gonna say, in the future, could it be scalable? Like if the lot is 75% the size of what is lawful now, like what the standard is now?
That could
then-
certainly be looked into
Yeah,
as an idea. Yeah.
so just an idea for the future.
I got a question. I'm Martino Luna.
Come on up.
I'm from 713 Pine Street.
Come on.
Yeah,
That way they can hear you.
that's fine.
Yes, sir.
So I just want my carport just for shade, for my cars and for snow and anything. I talked to my neighborhood and she said that she don't have any problem for that. So I just come here and, conform or whatever you say, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was at the meeting, and there was nobody that came forward from around the neighborhood that had any issues with it, you know, and I mean, it is unfortunate, the lot size, and we are doing lawful conforming with it, and it's a carport, you know.
Well, for sure, and I mean, I do appreciate the fact that it's carport, that it's open, you know, but I think that these are the types of things that we need to continue to wrestle with as a community. Like, are we gonna have a standard? Why is it the standard?
And are we gonna conform?
And are we gonna conform to the standard? I'm just trying to bring those types of questions up.
Yeah.
You know.
One thing I do want to raise, Mr. Orduna, if you find out after, say you get the approval tonight and you've put this carport up, if you find out that that's putting water off onto your neighbor's property and causing a problem, you're willing to put gutters on it if that comes up in the future?
No, the waters I'm going to all the way up to the street, nothing on my neighborhood.
So you've already got a plan for discharging the water if that becomes an issue for your neighbor?
He's saying that the roof line will go, basically discharge it to the street, it's not gonna actually go to the neighbors at all, so.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
I think that doesn't make sense. So is the peak of your carport going to be in line with your cars? Is it going to be parallel to your cars? You're going to have your roof line with water running down onto your driveway? I would suspect that would not be the case.
No, who said anybody speaks Spanish? No? No. The carport is going to be like this, So the water come to the street, not into the sides.
There's no,
he's just doing a
it's like,
Yeah.
towards the driveway.
Interesting.
So they didn't affect anything, so.
He's going to guess it from
Yeah.
his roof line, make it go straight out.
So this is where we're at. So it's like we're basically closing that, and then when you look, like, you know, it's just really super dense, like I said, but you do have that there, you do have the alleyway there, so. Okay. All right. I see what you're saying. Just a lot right there. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I have any other questions. I mean, you know, I just trying to establish, yes, I know where you're going with it. Isn't there, at some point, you have some ranges in your variances, right? Like you can, this has to be requested, but you can approve up to this much. Aren't there some instances like that in the code?
I think there are, I don't know
Like
those right off the top of my head.
maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know right off the top of my head
Yeah.
what those are.
Okay. I just think like over 50%, you know, we're, actually, I want to get the right number here.
It's 53.
53%, you know, it's not quite double, but you know, when the standard is 35 and you're going to 53, it just makes me wonder, at what point would we say no?
Right.
And I feel like Kewanee, for a long time, has struggled to find that answer. And at what point will we as a community hold the line on some sort of standard so the rest of the people on that street know and can expect what their neighborhood is going to look like? So that's kind of where I am.
Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Colomer?
Yes.
Councilmember Cernovich?
No.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Councilmember Comnic?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
And item C, bill number 26-44, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a 3-year agreement with the Henry County Humane Society for the maintenance and operation of the animal control facility. We found it is cheaper for the city to contract out operations of the city pound than to do it ourselves. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
And any discussion?
So this is a 1-year agreement with a 2-year
With two one-year
extensions. So not technically a 3-year agreement, but 1-year performance-based. We will extend it 1 year at a time beyond that.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure that that is understood, that we're not just going with that in the way that it's written.
Anything else?
And then at those one-year marks,
That's
we
all.
would discuss if there is an increase in compensation.
Yep, that was the next thing I was going to ask. Okay.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Cernovich?
Aye.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Councilmember Comnic?
Aye.
Councilmember Colomer?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye. Item D, bill number 26-45, ordinance amending chapter 95 of the city code of the city of Kewanee, Henry County, Illinois, regarding public camping and nuisance abatement. For the past several years, the city has been updating its ordinances to ensure they remain effective and aligned with current community needs. This amendment seeks to address sensitive situations involving individuals in need while maintaining a balance between compassion and the public's right to safety, accessible use of these areas. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
And discussion. Well, I read through verbatim, every word. It took quite a while, it was a lot of reading, but I thought it addressed many of the situations. Hold on, ma'am, get my timer ready, because I am going to hold you to your 3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, you're going to let me talk now?
Yep.
Just grab
There's a little.
I can talk, right?
No, grab the grip,
Yeah?
like straight out,
Yeah?
and grip, there you go.
Okay.
Because that way the online people can hear.
I gotcha. Okay. My question,
You say your name, ma'am?
my name is Gail Gerard, and I'm a little bit confused about the ordinance. My understanding is Governor Pritzker has said that homeless people can set up camps in public places. Is that what he has stated? Or is that what the plan had been? Because I'm very confused about this. I know that we have, I'll just put it this way, I'm very concerned about the homeless people in this community. There are a lot of them, more than anybody could guess. Sort of like stray cats in this town. If you see one, trust me, there are at least 10 more. There are a lot of people who live in their cars, I know that. There are people who live in garages. I have a friend who lives in a basement at somebody's house, and as long as he's out when they leave for work, then he wanders the streets during the day. I don't know everybody's story. I do know a story that, I lived about 2 years ago. In the particular case that and some of you may have read about it in the Kewanee Voice, a man named Bobby Ince who now lives at the Oaks. But in his case, he kind of lucked out because he is deaf, and because he was of retirement age, he was able to qualify to get with his Social Security, to get into the nursing home. He had, I'm not going to tell you his whole story, but he had not been prepared for life on his own. He just hadn't been. And when his sister passed away, I took her Chihuahua, because I promised her I would if she passed away, while her dog was living. And then he handed it to me the day after she passed away, and I thought, but what happens to Bobby? And all I can tell you in a nutshell is that I went to every agency, every organization, to try to find a place for him to live. There was a real problem in the fact that Bobby spent a lot of his money at the Gypsy compound. He didn't know how to manage money. And my fear was, if I found him an apartment somewhere, he would not manage well and probably be thrown out. He had unfortunately been asked to leave the high-rise in Galva. Henry County Housing doesn't really want to see him again. And when I went to a number of other places, I got blank stares. I really didn't know what to do. And it was a deaf person whom I know, a friend of Bobby's, as a matter of fact, a friend of mine, who suggested that I look into nursing homes because it was a possibility. And luckily for us, the day before the sheriff's department was going to come and throw him out of the apartment he'd been living in with his sister, he got to go to the nursing home. He's very happy there, but that's not going to be everybody's story. And my concern then is, if we have time to look into this during the summer months, perhaps we can find some structure somewhere in this town that could be made into temporary halfway house style accommodations for some of these people. I don't believe it's right to have them, and I have seen them, cardboard boxes out in Baker Park, where people are living in the cardboard boxes. I don't believe that having somebody duck into a garage at night to keep warm is the right answer for a homeless person. I also, however, don't believe that people should just turn their backs. They're human beings, and they're out there, and I talked to one out here on the bench before I came in for the meeting, who lives in his car. There are a lot of those people, and my concern is nobody seems to know what to do with them.
That is an age-old problem.
Yes.
And it's one that unfortunately is not going to be answered immediately.
No, right.
And often not correctly. And it's not anybody's fault, it's just, that it's not going to be answered correctly, but it's a staggering situation that is hard to deal with. It's expensive to deal with. And I know without receiving some type of governmental help above your local government, we would not be able to put up a housing facility, for the unhoused people. It's always, I hate to say it, but it boils down to money 99% of the time. Of course it does. It's very unfortunate, but that's the case. And then you have to have people that are willing to maintain the property and work there. And you'll have volunteers that will go in and offer services, but you're going to, you can't always count on volunteers, so at some point you have to try to figure out a way to pay these people. And so it's a problem, and I couldn't agree more. But
there's no magical answer, and I understand that totally.
And I don't have the answer to give you at this point in time.
I read The Voice, and I heard some comments or read some comments, and it's like, get rid of them. It's not like it can throw people away.
They have rights too. They're human beings.
Hide them.
And that's what this ordinance is not illegalizing unhoused persons, but it is, giving us avenues to try to deal with it in a humane and positive way rather than making it a negative thing because they're having a hard enough time as it is, and that's what this ordinance is intending to do, is to try to help the people rather than to compound the problems that they already have.
When we had the discussion on this, there was 3 avenues we could have taken.
Yes.
One was very just black and white, kick them out, get rid of them. Second one, a little lighter on that. The third one had a lot more care and compassion for them. And that's the route that we're taking here.
That's wonderful to hear.
And what we put and what we've discussed and what we're going through with our Deputy Chief Minks and Chief Kijanowski is something that helps us have compassion, but also has an ordinance that allows us to have a city that is welcoming and inviting and not threatening, and I'm not saying that they're threatening, but some people don't feel safe if they're housed in a certain area of a business district, right? And so it gives us the ability to work with them in a compassionate way and take that human being that has rights and give them a different opportunity through this and not just fine them or do other things that we looked at with some clawback. Well,
if there's anything that I can do, I'm more than willing to volunteer in any way I can. I know that in 2024, Peoria decided that they should just arrest all the homeless people.
Yes.
So they're allowed to live as long as 180 days in jail. Yay for them! But that doesn't work here, and it shouldn't work anywhere. So if there's anybody out there listening tonight who wants to try to come up with some solutions, it's a hard subject, it's a terrible subject, but I could tell you stories. I mean, I knew a lady who lived in Beverly Hills, and when I worked with her in Beverly Hills, she was a receptionist at the office where I worked, and she lived in her car because her husband had hid his money and threw her out of the house. Not everybody's story is hers, but there's so many stories. And homeless people come from all walks of life. Not all of them are drug addicts. Not all of them are, handicapped in some way.
Anytime we have people behind you, they're waiting to speak.
I'm sorry, but
I'm just here for
moral
support.
the misfortunes are things that we can't help, but hopefully in some way we can find a way to give them.
Unfortunately, most cities are either going the route of Peoria or they just don't talk about it at all.
Yeah.
So I think a big step for us, is at least we're having the conversation. We're trying to do something proactive to, it's not going to fix the problem. It's not going to solve anything, necessarily, but at least it's getting talked about.
I appreciate that. I think a lot of people do, and I know I've talked way beyond 3 minutes, but I really want to volunteer in any way I can.
And I can say, we have transportation available to some of these homeless shelters that we don't have one here in Kewanee, but I know Galesburg has 2 or 3 of them, and other larger communities within the relatively near distance, they have them. But I can also say I've talked to several people that I know that have been unhoused, And when I talk to them, they absolutely refuse the idea of going to one of these homeless shelters. I've run into that on at least 2 occasions with people that I know that have been unhoused. And, one of them was very recent, and one was, last year that I talked to him. But both incidences, they would have nothing to do with being driven to Galesburg or anywhere else. They even said, I'd rather live on the street than go to one of them places.
Unfortunately, some of the shelters, not necessarily in our area, I don't know this for our area by any means, but I know in bigger cities, some of the shelters, the people are safer on the street.
My experience has been somewhat different.
Yeah.
I've lived in both Los Angeles and Chicago, and have befriended people on the street. I give a lot of money away. I know I'm a fool because I'm not rich, but, State Street Mission, guy on the corner at White Hand, Brian, how's it going tonight? Well, Gail, I need $3 more for a bed. Here's $3 more. Go to the State Street Mission. I mean, there have to be ways we can help these people.
Yeah, and I'm not discounting anything. I'm just going off the handful of people that I've had personal interactions with, so.
Gail, I commend you for coming up tonight and speaking and saying you're willing to help.
Thank you.
Starts with one person.
This young lady would like to speak to you.
He know me. They know me. Hey, everybody. It's been a while since I've been up here.
Still like for the viewers at home that don't know you, if you'd still state your name, please.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Yonini Israel. How y'all doing? How you doing? I'm up here right now because, well, not only have I been homeless, but unfortunately, June 2nd, I will find myself homeless again. It's not for trying. I will be removed from Henry County Housing Authority, Washington Apartments.
How long have you been there? How long have you
13 years.
13 years?
13 years.
And they decided now to remove you?
Well, it's not for lack of trying. They tried to work with me, and I tried working with them. I just, the help that I needed, unfortunately, isn't here. And the help that I asked for, I was denied. I asked for help from doors, denied 3 times. 3 times from doors. And the best I can do right now is I'm trying right now to get moving and storage. I got the storage now, but now I'm trying to get moving and to move all my things back, because I'm moving away. I have to move back to Chicago because there are no homeless shelters here for us. And there's transportation to Galva to live in their homeless shelter, but I don't know what that's going to be like. And when I did live in a homeless shelter in Chicago, that was not a good experience. I've had countless things stolen from me, and it was very traumatizing.
That was kind of what I was told by at least one of the gentlemen I talked to.
Yeah, he wasn't lying. And a homeless shelter is a homeless shelter, and they're all basically kind of the same. Unfortunately, to say it like that. Sometimes it's a good thing, but a lot of times it's bad. Now, the homeless population in Kewanee is a ghost population. People see them, but they don't at the same time. And that's a problem, because when they become visible, then they're treated, I believe, as problematic. And that's not good, because we're still people. We still feel, we still live, we still have loved ones, even though they can't help us for whatever reasons they have. Like my aunt, she can't take me in because I have a cat. And unfortunately, she's deathly allergic to cats. So I'm not gonna ask her to, endanger herself to help me out. I wouldn't do that. And I'm not willing to give up my cat because I'm very connected to my cat. I had her since she was this big, and she's got separation anxiety issues and different things like that. And I take care of her. I give her medicines and stuff. And so yeah. That being said, we're not problems, we're people. we're people who have problems, and we need people who are problem solvers to help us mitigate those problems, if not outright fully solve them. You see? You understand? So if we had that, then seeing that, you wouldn't see us as problematic. You would see us as people who have temporary issues who can get them solved because you're the ones to do it. We have no one else to turn to. I mean, writing, a grant, I know it's hard. I understand that. It's doable though, It's doable. And especially when it's become such a big issue that we're now talking about it in our council meetings, and having to address it. There are so many people who need help in this town. And if I had the ability, I would help them all. But unfortunately now I'm one of those people too. So I'm one of the people who give out money. Somebody say, my son is sick, I need to have, and I'm like, what's your cash app? That's the type of person I am. But now I find myself in a predicament that, I was hoping I'd never be in again, but here I am. And I'm coming to y'all to ask y'all to see us as people, not problems. Thank you.
I did have one question for you.
Go ahead.
So you said you're facing eviction.
Yes,
was it a rent-based issue?
No, it was a rules-based issue.
Okay, because one thing I want to make sure the community is aware of, if someone's facing an eviction and the rent is the issue, there's something the court has at their discretion called a court-based rental assistance program. Now granted, there's a submission that has to be done by the tenant, that also has to be done by the landlord for that, and not everybody qualifies, but that is a resource that's out there that now as attorneys, anytime we do an eviction, there has to be attached to that summons a specific notice about the existence of that program.
Yes.
So for those that are facing potential homelessness, staring down the barrel of an eviction there, if money is the issue, that is a program that's out there, but you do have to get on it. Now granted, they require evidence of the filing of an eviction complaint is one of the things that program has to have. So you might not be able to do that until an eviction actually is pending. But once you get that, if the rent is the issue, then that's your trigger to reach out and you can pull that and pull the page and get all that filled out. Because it does take them a little bit of time to process that as well. But that information is on that notice that you'll get as part of that summons if that's done correctly.
Yes, and I also just recently got a notice that for domestic violence survivors, there's a law that was put in for them as well that they can't be put out of any federal or rental properties because of their, issue with domestic violence. So that's something I'm aware of and are making you all aware of as well. So yeah. So thank you for adding that. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking to us.
Chime in on something real quick. One thing I wanted to address to Katie, Mr. Gerard, the one thing I wanted to address to you is nobody really talked about resources that we have at the police department.
Mike, I'm sorry, if you pull the mic up and talk into it, then people are like, hear you.
There we go. Well, I was trying to talk to them. We have a lot of resources locally and regionally that we can at least put people in contact with. There's been times where people are like, I just need a fresh set of clothes, I need a shower, and we've gotten them to churches here in the community that are, we'll give them a shower. There's been people who are like, I need a ride to Peoria, and we'll give them a ride to Peoria to a family member's house. So I just wanted to pass along that whatever the situation is, stop in and talk to us, and we might have a resource, or we might know somebody. We have our DART program that helps people with drug and alcohol addiction, mental health issues. We have our neurofeedback program that's helping a lot of people that are just making them feel better. And once they feel better, then they're getting out and being more proactive in changing their situation. Just on our neurofeedback program alone, we have 5 people that are now holding jobs. One of them is buying a car. So we have places we can tap into. We have our Wise Deflection that is out of the Quad Cities, who they have unlimited resources on people to contact with. So, in your situation with your cat, come talk to us. Maybe we can have somebody board your cat for you while you can stay at your aunt's, and we'll figure something out. So I just want to pass that along so you guys are aware of that, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And that's what I'm getting out of the changes in this ordinance, is decriminalizing unhoused people, and it's showing compassion for these people, and maybe not always an ability, but always an attempt to try to help. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? Is there anybody else who'd like to address the council on this matter? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Councilmember Comnic?
Aye.
Councilmember Colomer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cernovich?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye. And thank you to those that spoke.
Yes, thank you.
Took a lot of courage to come up here and do that. And we are to item E, discussion only, water ordinance updates. And before we begin our discussion on the water ordinances, this is a discussion on city ordinances, not a discussion on privatizing water. So please don't panic out there in the public.
All right, thank you. So tonight, I'm going to keep it pretty brief. Before I come back with, and I have basically two versions of the final ordinance ready to go.
I'm sorry, Chris, point the microphone down. It's like right in your mouth.
Gotcha.
That's it, thank you.
So, like I said, I have basically two versions of the final ordinance ready to go here. As I was working through polishing everything up, I ran into a really great example of a town that had just modernized their water ordinance, and so it kind of made me double back and sort of rethink a lot of stuff. The town is the village of Montgomery, Illinois. It's over there by Aurora. They're split by the Fox River instead of the railroad like we are, but pretty similar case study here. Their previous ordinance was 1965, and they've gone up to 2025 now. And so mostly what we've gone through is sort of updating terminology, removing some hard-coded dollar amounts, keeping everything modern. But one significant thing that I've encountered now twice is tapping fees. And so that's why I call out the Village of Montgomery in particular when we talk about tapping fees. So our current tapping fee, when a new service is tapped into the water main, is $150. So for the Village of Montgomery, that same fee is $1,800. And then not only that, but it's multiplied by a population equivalent factor. So a single family home has a 3.5 times multiplier on that dollar amount. So it's $6,200 for a tap into the main, compared to the $150 that we're doing here. So our $150 has been on the books since the 70s, and even if you scale that for inflation, it should be around $1,200. But the population equivalent is driven by the construction cost index, which is published every year. And so that's what I wanted to bring to your attention tonight, is we kind of have a philosophical direction that we can choose to take here. And that is we either choose to sort of copy what Montgomery's doing and do full cost recovery for every new tap of the main, and just to be clear, it's new services only. So in general, it will only be new buildings going up, or if plumbing has been abandoned for a few years and a new owner comes to move in and their water line is required to be replaced under plumbing code because it won't pass the plumbing inspection. So it's not applying to everyone, but it does affect everyone in that when the new person or business or whatever comes in, they pay $150 tapping fee, and they could tap into a main that they could be using 50% of the capacity on that main. And so we've never really accounted for that capacity use of a main. Eventually, when you have enough connections on a 6-inch main, there will be that last straw that breaks the camel's back that requires an upgrade of the main. And it's not a good idea to pin that on the one house that has the 1-inch service line that broke the camel's back. So the sort of philosophical direction that we want to take here is, do we keep tapping fees low? Do we subsidize tapping fees and have everyone who is actively paying water rates subsidize new development? Or do we have new development pay the full and total cost of the new burden that they're putting on the water main system when they tap in with a new service line connection? And the other part of it is, when I wanted Christy to be here tonight, because we've run into this twice now, where apart from the tapping fee, we end up, we don't really have a process in place for charging for labor and materials for when people do need a tap of the main. So we've actually put that in place with the new version of the ordinance, and even under the old ordinance, it says all of those costs should be paid for by the applicant, and we've not actually reclaimed those costs historically. So not only is the subsidization happening at the tapping fee, but it's also happening just in general. We pay for the meter, we pay for the tap, we pay for the material, we pay for the labor. Everything has been subsidized up until this point. So if we follow the Montgomery model, a new connection is now somewhere around, if the city does all of it, if it's a single family home with the population equivalent multiplier and the tapping fee recommended by the construction cost index, and they pay the city to do the labor, it's $10,000 instead of $150,000. So that's what I wanted to present to you tonight, because I think this is a good example of sort of like I said, the philosophical direction we can take with water ordinance. This can sort of cascade down into a lot of the decisions we're making here. I know I very much presented it as we're trying to balance every penny and reclaim every cost, but that's just my perspective on it. And I know ultimately it's a decision of the council, and all authority with this rests with the council ultimately, no matter what. So, and before you say anything, Christy, did you want to add anything? Just maybe you want to explain the two cases that we just went through with the charging of the money.
I'm way lower than you.
Okay, sorry.
The two cases that he was just speaking about recently that we had is one of them is a home that the water service was killed at the main back in 2017, as if the house were going to be demolished, and that didn't take place. Obviously, someone purchased the home. They've now redone it to make it a very livable home, but now we have to reestablish the service for that home. And because of that location of the home, there's a chance, but there's no way to know that until the guys start the work, that they might have to bore under the road, so causing, road restoration, things like that. There's also, but again, the way it was explained to me by James, the water department foreman, that might not be the case if the original line is still there and still usable, then they can use that and they won't have to bore under the road. But it's in these cases, there's no way to know exactly what's going to take place until it takes place. So what they did, they meaning James and Scott in the water department, wrote, we'll call it worst case estimates of material, labor, et cetera, if they had to do all, the worst possible case. And that's what we asked these people to pay up front, which they have done. The work's going to be done later this week, pending weather and staff availability. So that was the first case. The second one is someone who purchased what used to be a business many, many years ago, but it's one parcel with a business and a house. That's all one parcel. That's how the county has it. This particular structure and a house. There was only one line to both, because probably back in the day, it was someone lived in the house and had their business next door. Well, now, the person who purchased it recently wants to put a business in the building. The house is not livable at this time, nor do they want to live in the house. They may in the future want to use it as a rental, or maybe even look at if they can separate it and maybe sell the house, separate the parcel. So we have to establish water service, a separate water service to the structure where they want to have their business. So again, and it's on a state route? Yeah, state route. So there's all that goes along with that. So again, we had to do best and worst case, or worst case scenario with the estimate, and we asked them to pay all of that up front. Now, both of these cases are under the condition that once the work is actually done, and if it's less than what we collected from them, then we will refund the difference. But those are just two, and that has also been paid, and that's going to be done this week as well. So those are just two cases that came up just in the last 2 weeks that I worked with Chris on, and there wasn't clear language in the current ordinance of how to handle this. And his thought, as he has explained, is that we need to ask for payment up front of material and labor. But there's not really, again, like I said, a good way to do that effectively, because it's one of those, until you get in there and do the work, you don't know exactly what you're going to need.
Christy, how many of these cases, I know we just had 2 recently, but, annually, do we have 10, do we have 20? Like, I mean...
Sometimes none.
Okay. I mean, historically,
right,
I'd like to see that,
yeah.
Yeah. 2025 we had none, 2024 we had 2, we had 30 this year. Right. I'd like to see what that is.
Yeah, sometimes we don't ever have any.
What was the attitude of the people when you asked them to pay this?
Well, the one with the business, we had a preliminary conversation. They actually, she came in and asked before they purchased she inquired about it. And of course then we were just giving a ballpark figure off the top of our head with nothing in writing. So they had a better idea of what to expect, because what we ended up collecting from them was within less than $40 of what we had given her, just as a ballpark figure, verbal figure. So they were expecting it and had planned for it. In the case of the residents, they didn't have any idea that it was going to have to take this route after they had done all that work to this home, and also I believe they built a garage as well behind it. So I mean, I had several conversations with them about it. I mean, they were very cordial and positive towards me every time I talked to them. They weren't angry, or what I mean. And they did, but I think, I don't know what they had to do behind the scenes to get the dollar amount that we asked of them. They did do it, but obviously what they had to do to get that is none of my business. But so I can't answer whether it was a struggle for them or not because I don't know the situation. But it took several conversations with them and some time, but they have come forth and taken care of it.
So if he's already charging them, are you just asking us to add it to the ordinance? Because it seems like you're already charging the people to do the work.
No, so, yeah, like Christie mentioned, we present them with the not to exceed amount. Anything less than that, they get refunded. Anything more than that, we eat the cost. But that's similar to what we do with the cemetery agreement. But what I'm asking tonight is, that's the labor. That's just the labor.
Oh, okay.
So the tapping fee would be on top of that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wrote down 4 different things. You guys have presented a multifaceted question, and really, you've even asked for some intent on how to handle interest, and the interest is budgetary, community development. Of course, we want budgets to balance, and I think I would start my thought path here with that we are a community, and water is an enterprise of the community. And so that means that we are by nature agreeing to help each other defray costs here. That's what's going on with the water. That's why when we looked at the water needs and the system needing large-scale infrastructure overhaul, we increased our rates by 23% and agreed to do so by 4% annually thereafter. That, to me, means that as part of our infrastructure plan, we need to develop a water main plan that coincides with a community development plan, and not necessarily charge investment companies or developers an expansion, add it to their costs, because I believe that would potentially run the risk of stifling development. And stifling development, in my opinion, would not be what we as a community would want to do.
I think without the direction of EAB and what our thoughts are, that's going to do the opposite.
I would completely agree with that, Chris.
But I would suggest that 150 is way too low.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is to develop a thought process and approach before we talk about
How much?
how much and how, because that's going to help guide the how much and how. So growth is positive. Any solution that we create, we should test it against, is that going to encourage or discourage growth? Anywhere, whether that's infill in a lot that we've torn down, or exfill, like, out at our, the turn of the century and Mill Creek. Then I would say, I think that you already are on this path, but we need like a standard connection scope of work. Here's what a standard connection is. Just like we already own all the way to the meter, and the house owns from the meter into the house. What's a standard scope of work? Does it get you to your right of way? Does it get you under the road to right of way on the other side? Whatever that looks like for 90% of the projects, develop a standard scope of work with over and above costs. Say, hey, wow, you're going to build on this lot. This lot is 3 acres. You've chosen to build in the back of the lot. You've got to go now 150 feet. That's well over a standard connection, because most of the lots in this town are between a fifth to a half of an acre. I don't know. Am I saying anything that helps with your thought process on that side of it?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think this case is it's uncommon enough for us to be able to assess it on an individual basis for scope of work, and present them with a conservative estimate based on that. But yeah, I mean, we could do like a standard linear feet of 50 or something like that, which would be, happy medium.
Right. I mean, paint out that bell curve. We're looking for like one standard deviation in this town of how far we need to go. That's a standard scope of work. I think what you're asking about, in my mind, in my approach, if you're going underneath a road, I don't know how often that happens, but anyway, if there's something over and above, we need to do that. What gave me some pause was when you started to look at communities that were doing this population factor, and we're calculating in water main volume expansion to serve. That makes me a little concerned that would stifle growth, when in my mind we already should have answered that with the 23% increase, and that we should really be looking introspectively here at what our water mains need to be sized for as we're replacing them.
So Adam, you bring up a good point. I was thinking about that because when you talked about that last addition on a 6-inch main, as the straw that broke the camel's back on that one. Well, it's not fair to that family that we were prepared to develop this area. We put in a 6-inch main instead of whatever an upgrade would be, 8, 10, 12, I don't know. So now that they're paying for the cost of our, not future growth, and that's where, as we develop the plan, we look at these certain areas. This is going to be a development, so maybe we need to start building the water main to support
in suburban areas. Like when I lived in northern Detroit area, I mean, wow, neighborhoods were popping up faster than anybody could create a reasonable urban development plan. We're not in that situation. We need to develop policies that encourage growth and EAV expansion. We're not living in an area where where expansion is happening so fast that we can't be prepared for it, and there's an economic business case analysis that can cover that type of cost. Those would be my concerns with going in that type of direction.
I think you're on the right track. I think with just the means about getting there, I think we're putting a little bit before. We're putting, like Adam said, dollar figures. Before we look at what actually we want to do, and then put the dollars back in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I can do is I'll definitely share some material with you guys, and look in both directions, because we can try to encourage growth all we want with subsidizing water service hookups, but I think that's one small part of the puzzle, and it's good to be aligned on all fronts. But
you can't look at it as subsidizing water hookups. That's not the direction I think we want to go. But I don't think we want to just start throwing out tapping fees of $1,500 without any kind of means behind it, saying, well, this is what this community does, so why don't we do this, right? Let's reverse engineer and figure out what the true tapping fee is, and then let's put that dollar figure in that supports our community, and what we can do, what we can agree upon, that will drive development, but also maybe subsidize a little bit, but we're not saying, I agree, $150 tapping fee. It's outrageous.
I guess to boil it down, in my mind, how many taps do we run a year?
She just answered that.
She said, Kirsty, I thought that you mentioned the two that are odd, that are unusual.
The two that we just...
Yeah, but I was saying like just any...
No, I asked her, but I mean, how many taps have we done?
I can go grab my log sheets real quick if you want me to.
Is that a different number than two?
Maybe. I mean, I can go grab my log sheets real quick.
No, I made a note of it. It's okay. I'll get you those numbers. I made a note of it. One notable one prior to the two cases that we just gave was Freedom House did a new tap, and that was a 4-inch. So with a 4-inch service line going to commercial property, you end up with a multiplier on that too. That was a $10,000 tap basically that we didn't charge them for. Now they tapped into a 12-inch main, which was recently replaced, so we're certain that we have the capacity there, but they're using 4 inches of that 12-inch pipe now, and yeah.
So the Freedom House, though, correct me if I'm wrong, because live right behind it, they had their plumbers there, and they had everybody of their people that were renovating that facility doing all of that.
Right.
And so for us to charge them for something they did,
He's
No, but they're
talking about the usage, like if you tee off 4 inches off of a 12 inch.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But I mean, so that's where I'm at, like, we're talking about two different things. You know, one's an over and above for the actual installation.
Right.
One is, you know.
Which is still pretty much authorized by the old ordinance, by the way. All
Right.
costs of tapping is at the expense of the applicant. It says that in our current ordinance.
I'm suggesting that we pull back, go farther back in the system here, and first take a good hard look at our mains, and if they're sized appropriately, or if we need in our infrastructure plan here. Because at the end of the day, we increased the 23%, we passed the sales tax for the roads. We are still not really, I think, all on the same page as to how we're gonna execute those budgets.
That's what I was asking earlier, like, what's the purpose of the 20%? I thought it was to fix the pipes. And if we don't fix the pipes with the money, and the people are tapping in, we put it at that deficit. You know what I mean? It's kind of sense.
I see what you're asking there.
Yeah, because if we increase it 20%, so we get current, so our pipes are fixed, but people are tapping in line, it's costing $1,000 here, $1,000 here. I mean, we'll never get caught up. Eventually, we gotta do something.
But also on top of that, if we've got a 4-inch main instead of a 12-inch main, in an area that really needs a 12-inch main, that should be pre-thought out in an infrastructure plan that these are way undersized, this is undersized, we've got this loop, whatever, I know we went through this at one point, we've got some loops in our system that need to be fixed and whatnot, so, I mean, there's a lot of work I think that needs to be done.
But to answer your question, subsidizing at some point is part of what governments do, all right? And when we want to have growth like developments similar to the turn of the century in Mill Creek or any other housing development that would occur, when that adds EAV inside our community, city boundaries, that's going to be beneficial for everybody. That's the economic engine that really is going to power the government. So whatever we do, we need to make sure that we are encouraging that, not discouraging that. That's, I know we said that before, but I think that's.
I think we can look at that, it's kind of a two-pronged approach versus, what was neglect or poor planning on your part versus poor planning on our part or expansion. Like, I think there's a couple different ways that this can be looked at to still make sense across the board.
I think that's right. Like, let's say, forgive me, Freedom House. Like, let's say if they did that, on the edge of town where they were at the end of a 4-inch main, they would need to communicate with you well ahead of time, because obviously we wouldn't be able to provide them the flow rate that they're looking for, the flow or bound, So I think that's wise.
Yeah.
To have something in there like that.
Yeah, and again, kind of, I hate to say case by case, but case by case. If you're building at the end of a 4-inch and you're going to need 4-inch, then again, that's a little bit on us. So we're willing to do X if you're willing to do Y. And I think there's a lot more that's going to go into this rather than just here's what everybody's got to pay.
This should definitely be.
Yeah.
Well, case by case works better when you've got an agreed upon process on how to review it.
Yes.
And that's one of the things
that we don't
try and ask some questions away. Like, hey, we've got the standard, okay, but when we're going to go beyond this line, what are our interests? Sure. Why do we care?
Yep.
Thank you, Casey. Yes, excellent insight. I appreciate it. And it's given me some good direction to present you with at least two options. And yeah, I'll share that with you via email this week. And hopefully have something finalized for the next meeting in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Chris. You're heading in the right direction, yes. I like all the work you're doing and appreciate it, so keep it up.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Chris.
And again, this code of ordinance documents is fluid. Just because we change it doesn't mean it has to stay that way for 50 years like it's currently been. We
should be reviewing it on
Yes, yes.
a more frequent basis.
Well, that,
I got one more then, yeah. So on the annual, we should do an annual review, because I know that we authorized 4% thereafter on the rates, but we still have to set that amount. We can't just say 4% forevermore and then not like authorize the update to the dollar amount. So we're definitely gonna have to do that, and that will have to be written in there as well.
Yeah, I agree.
thank you.
Yep.
So that concludes our new business. We'll move on to council communications. And I'm actually going to start tonight. And I would like to start by congratulating Bree Kirsch. Bree recently announced her retirement after teaching for 20 years with the Kewanee School District and teaching a total of 25 years. Bree was awarded the My Favorite Teacher for News Channel 8 in 2022 and the Master Teacher of the Quad Cities in 2016. Bree is one of those teachers a student is fortunate to have. Teachers like Bree do not come around often, and I know she will be difficult to replace. So thank you, Bree, on your dedication and excellence in your field. And then yesterday I was able to attend the Memorial Day service that was put on by the Kewanee Veterans Council. And as always, they did a great job, setting that event up. And I would like to point out that our very own Adam Cernovich was the guest speaker, and he gave a very thought-provoking and fantastic speech. So thank you for that, Adam. I really enjoyed it. And the Central Junior High team was recently competed at the IESA state track meet. They had 8 athletes compete in the 7th and 8th grade events, so congratulations to all who competed, and the great showing for Central School and the city of Kewanee as a whole. And then last, I want to congratulate all our local area graduates from Kewanee and Weathersfield High Schools to Black Hawk College and all the surrounding communities. So congratulations to all our area graduates. And we'll start with you, Adam.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. It was a wonderful ceremony, and I thought the band was a wonderful addition as well. It was really great job that they do there, and to get to experience the 3-time state champion, was a special treat. The only thing I have for the community, a week from tomorrow, we've kind of gave a plug here before, but a week from tomorrow, if I've got my calendar right, the farmers market is going to be on Wednesday evening with food trucks and music, and that starts June 3rd.
Awesome.
Yep, so that'll be a great event, so go out and support. Thank you.
That it?
Yes.
Councilman Baker.
Yes, Mayor, I also agree that we had a good time at the service. I think Jared Towner should be a comedian because he's hilarious. I just love hearing him talk. And once again, they did a great job. Really enjoyed it. And I told you there before, thank you for your service. And I told him, I didn't realize he was that smart either, all those degrees you got, man. Great job. That's all, man.
Councilman Conner.
That threw me off a bit there. I was also at the ceremony, and it was a beautiful day, beautiful ceremony. The speech was good, hearing the band play. I mean, it was an all-around moving experience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Then I had one other thing here that somebody brought to me before I got here, so I didn't have a chance to email it to you. But it's just the crosswalk signal at 3rd and Main. It gives you the stop, but it doesn't give you the go. So there could be kids standing there right now. We don't know.
We'll look at that.
You love Tom, so it's funny.
Yeah. Oh, I've got nothing on Jared.
That's all I have tonight.
Councilman Collins?
I think it's all been said. I don't have anything to add going forth.
All right, I think we do have some announcements.
And I would just like to piggyback off a couple things that the mayor said. Ms. Kirsch, my daughters were both lucky enough to have her as a teacher, and so we've been able to build a relationship with her and her husband, and they are great people, and it is going to be a loss for future students, but such a blessing for those that had her, and they're just a great couple, and I look forward to seeing what they do in their not working lives for the community, because I think they'll be great. And then I'm sorry that I missed the service yesterday. I've heard great things from many people about all of it. I was on my way home from a vacation with my husband, so sorry I missed it, but not sorry. And then a citywide cleanup will be held Saturday, June 6th from 7 a.m. to noon. Again, we are still looking for volunteers to help out with that. We can give service hours for any high schoolers that are in need of them. For more information on what all that entails, or if you have any questions about what you can bring to the cleanup, please give City Hall a call or check our Facebook page for details.
With that, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Comnic?
Aye.
Councilmember Colomer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cernovich?
Aye.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye.